Hi class, I'm inside of Lightroom, not Lightroom Classic, so the interface is a little different. But the reason why I'm in here is because the way that the newer version of Lightroom Classic and Lightroom, they have a different system than what I have in my version of Lightroom Classic on my personal computer. So this will be more familiar. So you'll see this on the left-hand side, or I'm sorry, the right-hand side is my edit menu. So I have this picture that I've already done some editing to, which you can see of my daughter Peyton. The reason why I picked this photo is because I wanted to work with some portraiture, and this will allow me to show you how to clean up little skin blemishes and whatnot. Not that she has a ton, but just to kind of show you what it can do, especially the difference between the cloning and healing tool. So if I click on edit, you can see that I have the same type of tools that I have, on the, don't want any of those. Just gonna delete all of that. I like the way that I had to already edit it, but you can click on black and white or auto. It has those options. You'll see the color mixer is here, and you do have all the different options of how to interface. This is a little bit more it is a little sleeker, I guess, looking than Lightroom Classic. Everything's kind of in together. So you've got options here, some new options like the color grading, but we'll go over, gone over actually most of this. So I just wanted to show you it's there. This is the crop, so you are allowed to crop your images, and you can flip and rotate your images as well. You can see that if I come out to the outer edge, where the corner is, my icon turns into that curved double arrow. So you can crop it. This image was shot with kind of purpose, I guess. So I don't do a lot of cropping in post-production. It's pretty rare. Most photographers really want to get their composition set in camera. Sometimes when you're working with graphic designers, you'll purposely leave some space for cropping because they might have specific shape or ratio or proportion or placement that they're looking for, so you might give a little extra room. But other than that, you really shouldn't be cropping too much here. When you crop your image, you're just throwing out data and you're reducing the quality of the image. So, but you can crop here. I would say if you do crop, you should be cropping somewhere in the 10 to 15% range and no more than 20% of the image, because that just reduces the quality too much. Now you can also see in the crop tool, it gives you your rule of thirds. So any place that there is an intersection is a good place for you to have a focal point. So maybe I would crop just a little bit so her eye is at the main focal point. So a little closer, got rid of a little bit of extraneous information. Honestly, I probably would have left it the way it was, but again, you can use that. Another thing that you have here, which is pretty cool, is it's not just you have different crop overlays, golden ratio, golden spiral, any of these that will allow you to pick your location. So there's the golden spiral, there's the golden ratio, which looks pretty similar as it should to the rule of thirds, and actually mine was a perfect golden ratio if I wanted her eye in the one of those intersections, and then center if I wanted it perfectly centered and symmetrical or on the diagonal. So there's all these different file format, these different cropping tools and composition tools rather that allow you to make a nice composition. So maybe I wanted that eye in there. That's pretty cool. I could even expand that back and move it up, and then I've got still a pretty nice comp there. So these are all guides that you might want to use for helping you pick a proper composition. So once I'm done, I can just click and say yay. Then let's hop down to the healing brush. So the healing brush has two different modes, a clone mode and a healing mode. The clone mode is going to be a direct copy and paste from one area to the other. So I'm going to zoom in, hitting Command plus, and then I'm going to use my space bar to get the hand tool so I can move it into place. So Payne's got these cute little freckles here, but maybe she has a little red mark on, a couple little red marks on her cheek and her chin that I wanted to get rid of. Now, if I clone, and I just want to show you this, if I clone, it is going to take an exact replica of that area. So I purposely moved this to make my point, where I'm actually making a copy of her lips onto that little blemish. Of course, I wouldn't do that, but that is what it looks like. But if I did the same thing and set it to heal, you'll notice that the interaction of it changed. It kind of blends both the lips and her natural skin tone together. So it kind of preserves the tonality of the original area and some of the texture, and just really takes what it needs and blends those two together. So a lot of times with like something like little blemishes, I'm going to be looking more at using the clone tool or the healing brush rather than the clone tool. So I'm going to do this again, and that's healing. So this is a little bit complicated of a spot because she does have a little red area there, but she has some hair that's also in the way that's kind of creating some issues. So I'm just going to try to work around that. So I'll just click around and try to get rid of a few of these little things. So that's clone. Now you can also change, so I have my feathering set at 50%. I can change my feathering to 100%, so it's really, really soft. So if I wanted to take that little freckle off of her chin, I could move that and make it nice and soft. You can also change the opacity of, so if I wanted to soften that freckle without removing it completely, even though that was a pretty subtle freckle, I can change the opacity so it's copying. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And get my space bar and move up, and I have this one on her nose that I'm going to get rid of. And I'm going to take that opacity all the way up because I want to have that definitely cleaned off, because that was an actual, some of this stuff is not true blemishes, but that one was. Okay. All right. So I can visualize the spots, and so I see all of these areas or not. Once I'm done with that, I can just move on to the next thing. So I'm going to go to masking, and this is where things have gotten, they've combined a number of different brushes together. into one thing. And I actually might move off of this file and maybe move to a different, maybe a landscape here. Maybe this one might be easier. This is really just a snapshot. See if we can find anything that's a little better to work with here. Okay, so in this photo, I might want to do a few things. So I was just looking at how to do this. I can, in fact, select a sky pretty easily and create a mask. So that's selecting the sky and that's doing that for me. So I'm going to add that mask. It's selecting the sky. It's taking a little bit of time detecting. So it's almost done. Or I thought it was almost done. Got some stuff happening in the background, which is taking a little bit longer to do this. New mask overlay. Now once I have the mask selected, I'm going to show that overlay. If it's telling me to hold on a moment, I'm being too pushy. So there's my new sky overlay. Did a pretty nice job of selecting that. So once I have that mask, I can select that mask and I can turn the mask overlay on and off using the eyeball. So when it's red like that, it's showing me that there's something there. So I can then start messing around with the sky. I can create more contrast. This is probably very heavy. I wouldn't want to do all of that, so maybe I'll take, it's a little bit too yellow in the sky, so I'll bring that down. I definitely want, maybe I would change the hue slightly. Again, this was taken with my iPhone, so things are getting a little pixelated, so I'm actually going to put kind of a pretty heavy defringe, moire, and noise reduction to see if I can get rid of some of that, especially since it's the sky. It's not really going away. And maybe I'll desaturate it slightly. Anyway, so we've got that, but notice when I'm working on that, nothing's happening down here. So that didn't affect, I'm going to turn the sky off, the overlay. So I'm going to click not to show the overlay. So this might be easier to see. So once I go here, you can really see that I've got a pretty nice mask, but nothing's happening when I'm changing the exposure and bringing the exposure all the way down. You're not seeing any change. So I can make another mask I can create a new mask. And I can do that based on a brush, a linear gradient, a radial gradient, a color range, or luminous. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make a mask. So I'm going to use the brush. So maybe I'll just paint down here and I'll paint around and just kind of select the areas that I want. And now I've got a new mask, and then within that mask I can change a few things. So maybe I'm gonna just kind of collapse this here for a second, and I'm gonna come up and perhaps change the exposure. So maybe I'm gonna brighten it up a touch. I'm really gonna do some ridiculous things so you can see and create a really high contrast. I definitely know that I want to do a dehaze, so I can dehaze, get rid of some of that junk, and create more clarity and a lot more texture. Looking so much better. But let's say, wow, I really like the way that that's working. I'm going to actually add to my mask. So I'm just going to add to it. I'm just going to keep painting and hopefully maybe get some more texture and dehazing in these other areas. So I can just keep on painting, and you can tell that my mask is starting to change and grow. So I've got brush 1, brush 2. I can just select brush 2 and keep adding to that. So I can have different size brushes adding to my mask, and then I can modify those areas. So again, looking good. And of course that's way too bright, but I'm just trying to show you where those areas have been hit and affected. So really great. So the mask is a little confusing and quirky to work from, but it's very, very helpful. So I hope you'll explore doing what's called local adjustments. So everything minus the crop that we did today are considered local adjustments and not global adjustments. I hope these help.